Call the Finance Committee meeting to order on February 3rd at 7:15 p.m. This evening we have three items on tonight's agenda. First one is communication from the mayor regarding the update on the library building renovation project. Second item would be a communication from the mayor regarding a transfer request in the amount of $3,029,000 for the design and construction of the Hudson Street landfill. And then the third and final item is a communication from the mayor regarding a transfer request for $400,000 for stabilization open space to acquisition of two parcels on Bolton Street. Also, I'd like to welcome Councilor Tenera and Councilor Perlman to the Finance Committee. With those pleasantries, we'll get started. And if Margaret, the Marlborough Library Director, could get us started of introductions, please.
Great. Good evening, everyone. We appreciate the opportunity to come and give you all an update on all the work we've been doing on the library design. With us this evening, we have our architectural team. We have Drayton Fair and Mallory Dempsey from LLB Architects. We have representatives from our project management team, Dalis CHA, and we have members of our library building committee. We have library trustees, and we have supporters with us this evening. So I will give the floor over to Drayton, who will walk you through, as I say, the work that we've been doing for several months now. I've lost track of how long, but we're excited to give you the opportunity to see the work and to ask whatever questions you might have. So Drayton.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you, members of the Finance Committee, Mr. Chairman. As Margaret said, my name is Drayton Fair, and I'm here with LLB Architects. My colleague, Mallory Dempsey, is here as well. She's the project manager for the project and has all the details, so she'll help us out with any questions that you might have. But we're very excited to present this. The last time I was here was quite some time ago, when we presented the grant plan to the City Council. And the plan has changed significantly since then. So we're very excited to show it to you. Now this is the property that the library owns now. So the Carnegie Library is in the darker blue and the existing edition is in the lighter blue. So throughout this process, the city has been purchasing some additional properties since the grant plan was done. So the two adjacent properties to the library itself, as well as property across the street. And this was to bolster some of the parking for the library and give the library a little bit more elbow room. So the contiguous property of the library itself has grown from here to absorb these two properties. And so this is the new site plan for the library. One of the things that we've really tried to do is highlight the Carnegie portion of the building on West Main Street. So the Carnegie building is here, right in the center. The building program for the library the new library is considerably larger than the existing library and certainly considerably larger than the Carnegie building itself. So the main bar of the new addition backs up the Carnegie building and acts as sort of a backdrop to the Carnegie building. You'll see in some of the renderings that the Carnegie building really is the focal point, particularly on West Main Street. But we've worked, and it's kind of a tricky site. Witherby Street is a lot steeper than you might think it is, driving up and down it. But we've been able to work with the existing grading of Witherby Street, and create a new parking lot in back that has about 35 parking spaces in it. Now it has 4 handicap spaces, and it has handicap spaces down at this end that address the new entry into the library, and handicap spaces that address a new meeting room entry to the library, which you'll see in a minute. On the interior of the library, again, one of the things that we really wanted to do was sort of take our cues from the Carnegie Building. So the new entrance to the library off Witherby Street is in direct alignment with the original entrance of the Carnegie Building off West Main. That's a little bit similar to the way that the addition is now, but you'll see in some of the renderings this is a little bit of, we like to think it's a little bit more welcoming than the existing addition. So on the interior, you come in, and directly to your left is the circulation department. Then the adult fiction. In the Carnegie Building itself, we've created a local history room, a periodicals room. As you come in, new books are directly to your right. The reference desk is down close to the local history room and within a direct line of sight of the circulation department. Behind the circulation desk is a whole staff area with a receiving area off Witherby Street. The adult nonfiction is in this portion of the building. So there's a number of there's some features of the building which are showing up rather bright on this presentation. But one of the things we wanted to highlight was the local history room here. Up in pink there's a new cafe area, and that's really a wonderful sort of social space where everybody can meet their neighbors, maybe have a cup of coffee, have some louder conversations, a real meeting point of the library. And then what was in blue here are a whole series of tutoring rooms and quiet study rooms and meeting rooms. And these are spaces that really don't exist in the library now. They're very, very popular. One of the features that we were very conscious of in designing the library were benefits to an expanded library services like circulation around the stacks. Right now, your stacks have some dead ends to them. So this has a lot more space to move around, and the entire building will be handicap accessible via the elevator right by the entrance. All 3 levels will be accessible. Moving upstairs via the elevator or via the stairs right along the front there, you get to the children's room, the young adult portion of the library, and the meeting room portion of the library. So the children's room moved upstairs instead of being on the lower level, and is greatly expanded. It has down in the southeast corner is the area for the preschoolers. They're separated by a glass wall from the rest of the children's room for security reasons and to keep the noise down a little bit. The children's service desk is right in the center, so they've got a great view of the entire children's area. The children's have a wonderful story and craft room program area that can be accessed both from inside the children's room and directly from outside the children's room too, just in case you're coming to a program and you're not necessarily going to the children's library, you're just going to that program. Now, adjacent to that is the young adult area, and the young adult area have their own workroom, again, right off the main corridor. And that main corridor is a wonderful sort of organizing element. One of the things that we try to do is we try to design buildings that people instinctually know how to get around, that the diagram is very clear, and when you come in, you can see where you're going and you understand where you are within the building. So in this particular case, there's a wonderful sort of circulation axis right by the stairs, by the elevator, and that leads you right to the meeting room area here. Again, some of the highlights are very bright with the preschooler area, the children's program room, and the young adult area. And the meeting room itself. Now, this meeting room can be divided in 2, so you can have 2 meetings going on at once. The total number of seats in that meeting room is just under 200 seats. We're showing about 196 seats. And one of the greatest things about the meeting room is that it can be used after hours. This whole wing of the building has its own set of public toilets. It has a security door here so that if it's not being used during the day, it doesn't have to be a security issue for the library staff, but in the evening, it can be used while the library is closed. As I said, one of the things that we tried to do was keep the addition a respectful distance. It's connected on the main level, but it's sort of separated a respectful distance from the Carnegie building itself, so that the Carnegie building, again, sort of is featured. It's sort of the jewel surrounded by the new addition. On the lower level, we have some mechanical spaces and staff break room, but we also have a wonderful training room that can be used by the library and by committees in town. Now, that is a secured space. It's not necessarily open to the public on a daily basis. It's a controlled space, but it can be signed out and reserved by people and by the city for different meetings and trainings. So this is the view from Lower West Main Street, looking up at the library. Again, trying to feature the Carnegie portion of the library. The block of the addition in back of it has a roof line that's very similar, a hipped roof line that's very similar to the Carnegie building. But again, sort of looks at it as a backdrop for the Carnegie building. Coming down West Main Street from Upper West Main Street, one of the things that we tried to do is really sort of very often you sort of zip by the library and before you know it, you're past it. So we really wanted to make it come alive. And so the young adult area and some of the quiet study rooms are in a small glass pavilion that will really be enlivened at night and act as a lantern, and sort of on either side of that Carnegie building will really enliven it. And we're very excited about the Witherby Street side. Now, the Witherby Street side, for years as you go to the library, you sort of see over the current addition and you see the back of the roof of the Carnegie building. So what we've tried to do is really celebrate this as the main entrance to the library. This is the main accessible entrance to the library. It's adjacent to the new parking area. So we really wanted to reach out and let people see what was going on inside the library. And this is a rendering that's shot from the new courtyard area. As you come down into the library and you're looking back towards Witherby Street, the cafe is on your right, and the stairs coming down from the upper parking lot are there on your left. So we're very excited about it. We hope you like it. We've met with a number of committees. We met with the Historic Commission back in December, and we're here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Drake, and I will now leave it to the committee to, if anyone has any questions regarding the library project. Councilor Ong.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question would be related to, does Margaret have heat after this is built? It's an old standing joke. She came in here originally saying that the heat right now is terrible. Hopefully, Margaret, you will have heat. But the main question that I do have is related to energy. I see you're letting in a lot of natural light. Are there any opportunities for renewable energy on the roof or somewhere that it would be practical? I know the building pretty much sits, it's north to south direction, so I was curious if that was considered.
Absolutely. Most of the work, frankly, all the work that we do these days is we practice sustainable building practices. We are looking to have the building LEED certified, which is Leadership in Energy Efficient Design, through the U.S. Green Building Council. So we're going for LEED certification. Right now, any renewable energy is not in the budget, but we are structuring the roof to be able to handle solar panels in the future. And there is room in the building for potentially for storage of electricity if that's what comes about. As opposed to giving it back to the grid, which is what is planned now. But this facade of the building, this side of the building really is sort of the south side. So that long hipped roof is frankly perfectly suited for photovoltaic. So we'd be very excited about that.
Great, and
potential
thank you.
in the
Mr. Chair, if I have just two more questions at the time. The building that exists, from looking at your plans, is a leg that goes out towards Main Street, towards our back side of Main Street, front side. How much is being demolished? Is it the whole back, is it the original, I mean, not the original, the non-original part of the building?
Correct. The entire existing addition is going to be demolished. We are going to reuse some of the excavated area. You know, when you take down the building, there's basically a big hole back where the auditorium is now. So we're building some of that space back out in the lower level. We're taking advantage of that existing excavation, but the entire existing addition will be going.
Is that cost effective?
It is. It is. The existing building is really not built up to current building codes. Right now, you know, libraries have a very high live load. It's 150 pounds per square foot live load for the weight of the books, basically. And your existing addition was built with actually a wood structure and wood floors, right? So these days we build it with steel and concrete for that kind of a load. So the existing building really, it's really not up to current building codes for libraries.
And the last question is storage. I notice you have 2 storage rooms in the basement. Is that sufficient? Maybe Margaret or you could answer that. You know, it's always...
There's never enough storage.
That's why I'm asking.
There is never enough storage, but as Drayton said, we're trying to maximize the lower level to get as much storage as possible out of that. And there's also some additional storage in the children's area because they tend to have lots of craft supplies and program supplies. So we think we have enough.
Okay, thank you, Margaret. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions from the council? Councilor Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like the glass. I guess my concern becomes when I'm in buildings with glass, the sun becomes an issue, either it reflecting into the room or it causing the room to be very hot, but then the rest of the building to be colder. Are you going to wind up having to buy shades that will then be used, or?
Well, a couple of things. Glass and glazing technology has come leaps and bounds in the last, 5, 10, 15 years. So it'll be the latest insulated glass that will be basically a heat mirror, so we'll reduce the amount of solar heat gain on the interior during the hot summer months. But shades are already in the budget. That we won't have to add shades, but we always want to have shades on all windows facing south anyway.
So the shades would be blocking the view during the day, but then at nighttime when the shades wouldn't be needed would be when you would really get the full ability to see with the lights on inside the building.
Right. The shades these days are they're not solid unless they're blackout shades, and we wouldn't have blackout shades in those portions of the library. They're sort of a mesh so that you can see through them, but they do provide a lot of shading for whoever is in that room. So depending upon the weather and depending upon the day, somebody can raise or lower the shades.
And then the first picture that you showed of the new building on the right-hand side of the entrance looks like a play area? That glassed-in area on the right?
No, that's part of that's a seating area that's part of the new adult fiction area.
Okay.
And then below that, on the ground level, the training room has an egress door and glass coming out so that there's windows in that training room, as well as on the left, the staff break room has some windows to the outside in the lower level of the existing Carnegie building.
Yeah. And I thank you for your repositioning the current sculptures there that are on Main Street. I like the way you have put them into the landscape. Thank you.
Councilor Perman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for the hard work that you're doing. It's very exciting to be able to view the plans. I had a couple of questions regarding the entrances. and if there's a separate entrance to go towards the cafe, or you would have to go in the building and then loop in, if you could go back to that image.
Sure. It's very important in library service, as you may know, that everything, that it's a very controlled environment. The library staff needs to make sure that they have a very good view of everything that's going on at all times and know exactly who's coming and going out of the building. So everyone does come in that main vestibule and then actually has to walk past the circulation desk into the cafe. So there isn't a separate entrance for the cafe itself. And that's where the main public toilets are as well. So that was another criteria that was important to this particular library, is that right now the existing restrooms are on the lower level, and so they're not really able to be supervised very well. So having a well-placed facilities is important.
And how many people could be seated in the cafe?
Well, we're showing probably about 20 at tables.
And then given all of the library renovations, would the hours still remain the same for the main part? I know we talked about those meeting rooms having availability later, but I'm curious if that had been impacted.
We really haven't talked about hours yet, but we're open 66 hours a week, and that's about as much as Worcester and Springfield and really bigger libraries are open. So we're open 7 days a week for most of the year, so we're already open a lot. We just, in terms of Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, or Sundays, there's opportunity for additional programs.
Awesome. And I just had a couple other questions. One was, I know we talked about the accessibility, which is really amazing, so thank you for including that. Is there any bike racks that are shown? I'm thinking of people coming from the bike trail and wanting to go to the library.
We do have a bike rack right now.
Currently,
And
yes.
we absolutely want to have a bike
Okay.
rack.
Or would that be in the design? I'm just curious. Would it be from the back, I'm assuming?
It would be. I mean, that's
Or I guess
where it
that's
is
the other
now,
front.
and that's where we would foresee it. Are you
Right.
nodding?
Well, the back is really the front.
In my mind, it's still the back, but I'll
Yes,
adjust.
I don't think that we've located it precisely right now, but it would be close to the main entrance.
Yeah, I'm thinking since we'll be probably having a lot of increased usage in the library, given all the renovations, and the parking spots have definitely increased, but I think it'd be really great to ensure that a lot of people could bike there as well. And I'm sure people would just pop in for the cafe too, which would be good to note.
I want to clarify the cafe intent. It's not going to be run by anyone. It's really just for the library patrons. If they have food out, that's where they'd be encouraged to eat.
Okay, so they'd use their own, maybe they bring their own stuff.
Bring their own food, right. So there is actually a small kitchenette, like a sink there to get water. I'm not sure if that's going to be open to the public yet, but there won't be someone serving coffee, for example. And there are vending machines there, so they're along the back edge.
Thank you for clarifying, that's really helpful. And my last question has to do with the local history section. I'd love to hear a little bit more about the intention for that.
Our intention is to focus on Marlborough history. We've had discussions with the Historical Society and to kind of bring displays to educate Marlborough children on the history of the city. So we have display opportunities. We also have local history materials. People do their family history by using our collection. They research events in Marlborough history. So really focusing on the history of the city is one of the major intents for that space.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. I think that's great, especially for our young people in the community to know more about Marlborough's history.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Councilor Dumas.
Thank you. The library currently now has an auditorium. Where is that? I know the Friends of the Library put on a lot of events. I just don't want to see that being lost in the shuffle. So where would that actually be?
That really moves upstairs.
Okay, so we just labeled meeting room as opposed to an auditorium.
Right.
Okay, and what would that actually consist of? There's a piano in the auditorium now, correct?
Right.
Will that stay?
The piano's on room.
Oh, okay, all right.
Storage room so that we really we wanted to really maximize the flexibility of the space so we can make it into lots of different things as our current needs are and as needs evolve. But that space in the corner of the meeting room is really the replacement for our auditorium. It's much larger. Our current auditorium seats about 90 people, and this will seat just under 200 people, so we can have bigger concerts and author programs and just community events in that space.
Fantastic. Thank you.
It has lots of windows, too.
Councilor Landers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have that many questions, but a lot of good comments. I don't know where to start. I love all the glass. That's important to me. The meeting rooms, the fact that you can have more than one meeting going on at a time, because, you know, we're a fairly medium-sized city, so that's a plus. The color scheme outside, because the roofs I love, the color scheme outside, if I assume they're gonna probably stay basically the same, and I think I see a great blend with the new and the old, and that's a plus. You know, I think Shrewsbury did a pretty good job, but I always think the times I've been out to Syracuse University, I never saw such a great mixture of old and new, and that's what I see there. They take the Carnegie part of that and then add to it, and they kind of just complement each other, you know, and I'm very pleased. I mean, that's a gem right there, just it's really wonderful. I think just someone did a good job on that. I like that. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
One thing I want to point out about this elevation that really didn't get spoken about is this facade right now of the Carnegie is completely covered by the 60s edition, so this will be a huge renovation effort to actually rebuild a Palladian window on that side and rebuild a lower level entry and door. So we're not sure what we're going to uncover, but our hopes is that this will be the end result.
Any other questions, Councilor Landers?
One quick one. I did see a few people sitting around. I saw a few people sitting on the stairway. Have you made any provisions for any outside seating? You know, it'd be nothing nicer than take a book or a magazine outside and, you know, on a 70-degree day or something. So is there any provisions for any outside reading?
We haven't really thought about that in depth yet. We haven't, but there are opportunities for some outside.
That'd be a relatively cheap addition, because all you're doing is putting a couple seats or benches out there.
Yep,
And maybe you could sell benches, you know?
we can sell just about anything.
Just a food for thought, though. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor Landers. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I got a couple of questions, a couple of them were already answered. I do want to get back to, actually, while this is up, the roof color. I like how you echoed the Carnegie design into the addition. I think that really does make it look better. I think having the color of the roof the same for both would just make it more consistent. It's just looking at it and seeing it being the same color. I think that you may want to consider that to try to match the color, even if there's going to be solar panels on it. To the meeting space, you said that it was going to be accessible off hours. Where's the entrance for that accessibility? Sure. There's another vestibule right here off the parking lot. Okay. So, and that's on the second floor, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, bring the mic with you. So on the Weatherby entrance, not to be confused with, you know, which one's main, there'll be two entrances on the Weatherby entrances at different heights.
Correct.
And the quote-unquote main entrance will be on the ground level.
Correct.
The lower level, and therefore that would parallel into the main entrance that was in the Carnegie entrance.
Correct.
With that flow, okay? And then above that and to its west, there'll be another entrance at the higher level.
Correct.
That would then have some restriction to it for after-hour use.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
And the training room has access, the training room is a third access point?
Yeah, so I was just going to bring that up. This is actually a super interesting site because it actually slopes not only front to back, but right to left up to 40 feet throughout the whole site. So every level has an on-grade entrance. So the training room, you have entry from existing, that's basically the children's room entry right now is this entrance. It's pulled up, but it's at that same level. We're not encouraging this as an entry. This is just egress only. So it's an accessible exit. And then, as you mentioned, the other two on-grade entrances.
The other thing, and just as far as, I like the heavy use of windows to accent the front, creates the open space appearance. There are some passive shading systems that can be put in that provide seasonal shading, because the long and short, during the summer, having the shades or having some sort of outside shading system basically blocks the sun from actually heating up the room. In the winter, you actually want that. And you want to have the sunlight heat to actually come in and help with. And there are ways to set up, passive shading basically for that. And I hope you guys consider that. And it's not expensive to put in the stuff. It's just all at the right angles. The other thing, and I'm glad to hear you guys are looking into LEED certification. I do hope you guys look into cogeneration instead of just a simple furnace. So that way you get electrical power generation as well as heat. It also provides this facility to be used in case of emergency shelter because it can generate electricity, through natural gas. So therefore that becomes an asset to the community. It also minimizes the actual carbon you still end up using natural gas, but at least you're double dutying it and getting more out of it. So I hope you guys consider to do that as well in the design. But I really am impressed with the type of design you guys are doing. Thank you.
That is beautiful.
President Nossing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Margaret, trustees, and board members, well done. The design is very encouraging. It looks like a lot of work's been put in, Drake and Mallory. Appreciate that. But now the fun part, right? So I'm interested in the schedule, the movement to the Walker Building, and the project cost.
Move to the Walker Building. We've been working with facilities, John Galoni and his staff, to really plan our move for the Walker Building, and we anticipate it happening in September, early September. Resources will be going to the opening of the school, so we're kind of slotted. We've got a time frame that we're going to be working with to try to get as much set up in the early months of this year as we can, and then we'll come back to the project when they're move in September. Early September is our plan right now. As far as the budget, I'll turn it over to Drake.
Well, as far as budget, we are still on budget. And so that's really, I think, we weren't exactly prepared to go over the budget in detail tonight, but we still are on budget. Even though the city acquired some additional property and we've got basically a larger site to work with, we have just finished, we're just starting our design development phase, but we had 2 cost estimates done at the end of the last phase, which was the conceptual schematic phase. Both those cost estimates were reconciled. We worked within the project budget that was part of the Mass Board of Library Commissioners grant plan. I think it was around $26 million total, and we're still on budget. So right now we're entering into our design development phase. We'll have another cost estimate done at the end of design development early this summer. At that time, if we need to make any adjustments to stay on budget, we will do that. And then we'll enter the construction documents phase, and we expect to be out to bid mid to late summer.
And if I could follow up, Mr. Chairman, so if I recall the rules of the grant, we have to have shovel in the ground within 2 years, which would mean January of 2021? Correct. So we're on track for January 2021 shovel in the ground?
We will hopefully beat that. We'll hopefully have shovels in the ground this coming fall.
The sooner the better.
Hopefully.
Just again, for the council's benefit, just a reminder, so we bonded a little over 23, almost $24 million. The Marlborough, the Massachusetts Library Commission gave us a little over $10 million. That's about $13.5 million that's going on our city debt service. That's about $695,000 a year for 30 years once we start the process. So just to keep that in context, as you've heard, based on what I told you in November and what the mayor's been telling us, the debt service is going to take a spike up. So just want to make sure that you're not shocked when you see the numbers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. Oh, Council Perman.
Thank you. I had a question about just going back to the Walker move, the Walker building. If you could speak to maybe how that's being publicized to people so they know that they can utilize the resources of the library in a different facility.
Oh, once we get our plan settled and we have a moving date, all that is publicized so that people know where they can get library service. Our plan is to move our entire collection to the Walker Building so that we don't have to incur any storage fees for material that we have to store off-site. So we're really fortunate to have the Walker Building to use and the space that it affords us for our collection. Yeah, we're making plans, and once those plans are firm, we definitely will need to redirect people to the Walker Building.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I'd recommend that be in multiple languages as well for access.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Council Orm.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will concur with Council Perlman about that. Someone just asked me last week, well, they're changing the library over to the Walker Building, so the news is already getting out there that they don't realize we're building a new library. Some people don't. So I'd suggest get that notice out. Different languages is noted, but also social media. Sometimes on social media, information can get a little confusing. The other question I had, and thank you, Mr. Chair, was related to the Walker Building itself. I heard there was some need for repair of the elevator. Hopefully that's all set. But are there any other costs that we may incur as we move over to the Walker Building?
No, we've done a couple of walkthroughs on through the Walker Building, and it has the data, the electricity, and it definitely has the spaces that we need. We're really going to be utilizing the corridors for the collection and use the offices for the less weightier elements of our building. So we have a structural engineer in the city. We have loads of resources in the city and the facilities and DPW departments that we're working closely with to evaluate and make the best plan for our space in the Walker Building.
And if I may, one more. What's the plan for parking at the Walker Building?
We will make the best of what we have. That's what we've been doing at our site right now, and we've not counted up the spaces that are available to us in the surrounding areas, but we're used to working with limited parking, and as I say, our patrons are as well, and we'll do the best with what we have, knowing that we'll have more parking in our newer
And that's
facility.
understandable, but
Yeah.
another point, if I may, is that during the day, if need be, we do have that shuttle bus that might be able to fill in a couple trips, maybe from our parking garages, so, because there could be a chance that the church is being utilized for a funeral, whatever the case may be, it may make the parking difficult, so maybe scheduling-wise, if the bus is available, obviously morning, later day, it's not, but maybe we can work with that program as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Orm. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The moving of the library reminds me when I was growing up. I grew up in a small town, Holbrook, and it was the town, Councilor Roby. But they had a new library construction, so there was a move day, and they were asking for volunteers from the city to actually help with moving the books and stuff. And there was a big show, it was a big community effort to do, and I remember it really well. So I hope we can do something similar to try to get some community involvement to help with the move, both out of the library and when the construction's done, putting everything back, so.
I've seen those efforts myself, and people, it's a real community event. I think they're good events too. Our collection's bigger than Holbrook's, but,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a PR, public relations opportunity for
Especially in the
sure.
60s, but yeah. But it'd be great, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Does the mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilors, members, thank you very much for taking some time tonight to listen to the presentation. Last year, I had talked to President Clancy and then Chairman Ossing about doing an update because I didn't want the library moving over to the Walker Building and a few councilors saying, what the hell's going on? So I figured we've been concentrating on a new school now for quite a while, and that should be finished up in the next couple of months, actually ahead of schedule. So we're really excited about it, but all our efforts now are going over to the library, and as we look for the purchase of a project on the west side for a fire station. But right now our concentration is going to be on the library. We are on schedule. We are on budget, President Ossing, and we're going to stay that way. So I want to thank you all for your efforts. The committee's done a great job. Your representative, Councilor Irish, has been at all the meetings and can obviously answer any additional stuff as we move forward in the process. But we're really excited about this project. You've committed the funds to it. You've also allowed me to go out and purchase a couple of the other properties around for a bigger footprint to give more accessible parking up there. And we're just really excited about this project. But I did think it was time to give you an update and let you know where we are with things and let the project and the committee continue. Councilor Doucette, as far as the involvement, the committee's open arms for raising $2.5 million. So we'd love to have the community involvement in raising some money, and they've done a great job, and we're going to continue those efforts to make sure we have the proper facility when all is said and done. So thank you all very much for your time, and thank you for the presentation and for the members of the boards that have been here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Margaret, and your staff. At this point, I will entertain a motion to accept and place on file the update on the library renovation project.
So moved.
I'll second that. Motion has been approved and seconded to approve the update on the library renovation project. Any further discussion? All in favor? It carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Pretty impressive.
All right, so.
Thank you, Les.
Item number 2, order number 20-100-7916, communication from the mayor. I'll read the letter. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, as you may know, the city of Marlborough was informed of a successful parkland acquisition and renovation for community grant through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the redevelopment of the Hudson Street landfill in 2015. This initial bond request to fund the redevelopment of the landfill for $3,095,000 to complete the revitalization efforts and meet grant requirements. Unfortunately, when ensuring the site met Department of Environmental Protection guidelines, we have encountered several environmental health and safety concerns. Since then, we have performed a comprehensive site assessment and corrective action alternative analysis for the site, which has identified all deficiencies in the existing soil cap and mapped out a DEP-approved plan to mitigate and said deficiencies. Per Commissioner Galoni, you can see the attached letter. The cost for the design and construction of the DEP corrective action and preparing a portion of the site for active reuse would be $3,029,000. I'm enclosing for your approval a free cash transfer request for $3,029,000. If it is concluded that this parcel will never become a City of Marlborough recreational facility, we could feasibly reduce the amount to fund this project to $2 million. However, I believe a recreational facility would be a wonderful use for this parcel of land. Additionally, I intend to send you documentation revoking the bond authorization for the $3,095,000 approved in 2015 in the upcoming weeks. Thank you in advance for your consideration. I look forward to discussing this with you further. Sincerely, Arthur G. Vigent, Mayor. So with that, I will bring up the mayor and his team. If you could, inform the councilors, please. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members, this is something that we've had discussions about. Council Oren's been asking for updates on this for probably about a year now. We're finally to the point where we can actually move forward. We have a directive from the DEP on what we need to do down there. I think when we went to do a new ball field down there a few years ago, that's when we discovered things haven't been updated since the landfill was closed back in the 80s, and so we had a lot of work to do. We had to clear the area off, we had to have retesting done, we had to go down to the lake and actually work our way back as far as testing to make sure make sure nothing had left the site. We had 4 testing wells that had never been used there for the most part, and had to make sure those were in working order. Our DPW and Tom and Ted and John Galoni have worked with DEP, hand in hand through this whole process. We're to the point now where we're ready to recap some areas, and we have 2 alternatives. My recommendation is we spend the $3 million and have it capped properly, and allow the future of this council or any councilors in the future to make a determination if they do want to put a field up there or use it for other purposes. But I figured I'd give you that alternative. If you tell me you want to spend the minimum amount, we're going to recap it and see what uses we can get out of it as it is. But I think we're to the point now where we can go out to bid this thing and get it cleaned up once and for all and get the proper capping in place. I also thought that it was important to take a look at the bond that we had approved a few years ago in moving forward in that original ball field. Feeling that at this time I'd like to have it rescinded, and if we intend on moving forward, give you and the new councilors the opportunity to have input on what we're going to do up there, as opposed to taking that old plan from a few years ago and just moving forward on it. So, again, we'll answer any questions that you have, but we're looking for an affirmative vote so we can get this behind us once and for all. It's been a long, long process, and we're excited to get it behind us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A quick question, too. I definitely prefer not bonding this project because of saving money on interest rates and things like that. Also, will this be a continuation every so many months that you would still have to do a soil testing?
There'll be continued testing, and I'll ask our engineer to discuss that.
Thank you. Tom, to proceed.
Yeah, that's correct. So we've been doing groundwater, surface water, and gas monitoring quarterly for the past few years, and that will have to continue moving forward. Once you get a final post-closure use permit, I think that the frequency of that monitoring might go down to semi-annually, I believe, but it will have to continue into the future.
Thank you. Thank you, City Engineer. Thank you. Any other questions from the Council? Roby.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding, Mayor, is you're pulling the bond, but if we actually want to do something, you would bring back a new bond.
That's correct.
This money is only getting it able to have a playground.
Be able to use it, or we have to move forward. we're under an order from the DEP to finish the capping of the project. So we have to move forward on recapping the area. The difference between the $2 million request and the $3 million request is if we do it to a higher standard, it gives us the opportunity to do something later on as far as a possibility of a field or some other use.
So would you be redoing the whole portion or only a portion of the site that then would become a potential recreational use?
No, we'll be doing the entire, well, portions of the entire lot. Again, I'll let the engineer.
Right, so there's certain things that we have to do no matter what to bring the site into compliance. There's areas, mainly at the outskirts of the landfill, that need to be properly capped. If it is the decision that we want to use some of the site for some sort of active reuse, then that part needs, there's a more robust cap that portion would need. So that's the extra work that we would have to do now if we want to use a part of the site for some sort of active use in the future.
You would need to know where the facility would be going, so you would know where to do that extra work? Or are you just going to pick up a spot and say, do the extra work there, and then if we decide to move forward, that's where it would go?
No, we would have to know, but I think it's sort of a no-brainer now because the southwest corner of the site, the top of the site, that's the part that's mostly level. The rest of it is fairly steep slopes, so that's really the only place that you could feasibly use for some sort of active facility.
Which is kind of where you had designed it.
Correct. That's where the
Inlet.
fill 10, 15 years ago was brought in anticipation of using that part of the site.
And then I guess the concern becomes, how do we ensure the public that it's safe to have a playground even with the extra million and the extra work for recapping?
How do we get that message out, you mean?
Yes.
Well, so there's many facilities like this throughout the state, recreational facilities on top of landfills. DEP permitting would be such that's the end goal, and all the monitoring, all the design of the cap is all to ensure that it's protective of people that would use the site.
And there's not potential of any kind of an issue while the work is being done for the public in general, or drivers on Route 85 or Hudson Street?
No, I mean, the construction would you'd have to make sure you keep the dust down. That would be the concern, I guess, during construction. But like any other construction site, there's ways to keep the public safe as they get near to the site.
Okay, thank you. I don't mean to hog the questions, but I'm sure that this is a big topic for discussion among the council.
Councilor Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. One is the actual cost to remediate the site is concerning. I know you're mentioning $2,029,000, but being part of a landfill recapping, I've seen that target number move up. They never move down. So a couple things concern me is approving an additional million for something we're not for sure where we're ending up on the end point with the present cost being projected. A couple questions related to I haven't seen any plans yet of what you're proposing, but maybe you already kind of know. Are you using recyclable soil that may have oil? It's called beneficial use determination soil. Or are you using all clean soil to recap?
So no, we're not bringing in any of that type of soil. We talked about that with our consultant, and that's not the route that we're going to go. A lot of the remediation that we have to do is really just relocating some of the buried waste that doesn't have a cap on it now. So it's really just moving trash around. It's not we're not getting into a big remediation type system as you might be thinking of. So it is a preliminary estimate, but we do feel like it's a fairly good estimate that's not going to go far beyond that.
Are you remediating the actual topography out there? Do you have any sags out there from decaying trash?
No, we really don't. We've done an assessment of the fill that's the soil cap that was done in the 80s, plus all the fill that was brought in from the Fafford site. There's not a lot of regrading or anything that needs to be done. As I said, it's mostly just moving trash from areas at the outskirts that we found really didn't have a cap over it from the one that was done in the 80s, consolidating that into an area and then capping that. That's really the main basis of what we need to do.
I have a few other questions. Are we planning, did we survey the property to see if all that trash is on our property, or?
We did, and it is.
Good, that's a big plus, so you don't have to purchase
Correct.
property. The testing that's been done, do we have any hot areas or areas of concern?
Just areas that don't have the cap. That's really the extent of it. No, really the groundwater monitoring really didn't show anything typical of what you'd see near a capped landfill. We didn't really have any hot areas like that, no.
When was the last time they actually did the capping of the landfill?
I'm sorry?
When's the last time they finalized the capping of the landfill?
It was in the 80s, when they stopped operation of it.
And you said some of the material came from Fafford's property, is that what you
No,
said?
that was a project that was done late. I'm not sure what year that was, maybe 10, 15 years ago, when they built Target.
Okay. So, I don't mean to grill you. I'm not grilling you. I've just been through this for 10 years, and things show up as you're moving forward. It appears that no matter what, we have an administrative consent order from the DEP to fix this. So we have, as the mayor said, that has to be done. There's no ands or buts about it. I've been asking these questions for a few years now, not just one. And because I've been involved with this, and when it came in for potential use, the reason I have no problem if it does go recreation use. We all have different ideas, I think, as counselors. I think the Ward 6 counselor will have the most say in the matter. It's in his district. In most cases, I don't know if it touches near Ward 5 or not, or 4, but this is a concern that we get this landfills remediated. That's the word that is utilized, so that it will meet all DEP requirements. I would prefer not to be planning future use until we get the basic determination from the state that we've met their administrative consent order. At that time, I don't see it being too late. If anything, it might just mean additional processes going forward for whatever the council so wishes. Some landfills are used for recreation. Some landfills are used for solar panels where you make a profit. There's all types of opportunities, trails. Again, I think I have an idea what you're trying to do here, and that is try to plan in advance so it's already done and over with for the potential for the use that's being presented. But I can't support the extra million at this point, not knowing if, I know you said the $2,029,000 is pretty secure in your mind that it's going to be the number. I wish I could have said that when we projected a number in the town I work for. We couldn't. It's difficult. You don't know what you're going to run into. So at this point, I can support, obviously, the funding to remediate, and that's all I can support at this time. Thank you.
The only thing I would say, just to follow up on that, in terms of doing some of the work now, there would be a little benefit in knowing that we were going to use part of the site for an active reuse, because, as I said, we have to consolidate some of the uncapped waste somewhere on the site and then cap it. If we knew we were going to use some of the site for that use, that would be the location we would choose. So it would change the way that we do that work a little bit, but I understand that you're concerned.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think if maybe we can see a report, Tom, from you or from someone going step by step in your reasoning. I mean, discussing it's great, but I haven't seen the lab reports, I haven't seen the proposal, so it'd be nice to see it in writing and on a plan. So maybe I'll change my mind once I see that. We can sit down on the sidebar and chat about it, but
Sure.
I'm not ready to support the entire $3+ million. But I definitely am here to support the $2 million plus that we'll need to have in place to basically remediate the issues you noted. Thank you.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree a lot with Councilor Oram on this. I do agree that getting the $2 million investment, to get this up to par and up to standards is critical. And, when it comes to these types of landfill capping, we don't know what we don't know. Okay, there's a lot of that we're hitting right now. Because, I remember when this came up to the council, and looked like it was gonna be all great and easy, and it's not. We did a deep dive and we found out all these issues. And as we go through the remediation, we may find other issues. I pray we don't, but it's possible. I think that, what we plan to do with this after the fact is something I'd rather wait to see, make sure that there's nothing else that we have to address and, worry about with this. I think we may, if there were other locations to put sports fields as a contingency plan, I think we need to explore that, and find a way to explore that. Because maybe we can't put a sports field here. If we can't, then where? We're short sports fields. I'm not gonna argue that. So how are we gonna find a location if not here? And I don't wanna be boxed in and say, well, we have to put it here because there's no other place. There's no other place because we haven't been looking, And so I'm being more pragmatic more than anything else with that. And, there are other opportunities. You put solar on something like this, it's a revenue generator for the city, and I think that has some possibilities as long as we can find a good place for a sports field. So, thank you.
Councilor Roby.
Thank you. I know you read the mayor's letter into the record, but you did not use, Mr. Gallone's letter was sort of touched on, but not discussed. So I guess I just want to make sure, in the letter from Mr. Gallone, he does state that over the past 3 years, this has been looked at. There was a comprehensive site assessment, and everything was approved by DEP. All of the issues that were needed to be found were found. And DEP knows what needs to be done to fix the issues that were found. So there aren't going to be any issues discovered when you're out there moving trash around?
Correct, yeah, Council Roby brings up a good point. We over the past 3 years, we've been doing it, there's an interim CSA, an interim comprehensive site assessment, and then a final CSA, the purpose of which is to look at every possible area of the facility that could cause risk to human health, public safety, or the environment. Every step is vetted through DEP and ultimately approved. And then, based on the results of the CSA, our consultant puts together a comprehensive alternatives analysis. And that's where he comes up with the proposals to remediate the things that we found in the CSA. So that's why I understand that there's always something that could come up, but we've done a very thorough assessment of the facility, and with DEP, and we feel really good about what we need to do and the cost.
And so again, to reiterate, the cost differences are the first $2 million is strictly to do what DEP is requesting.
Correct.
The
It's
additional
to design
million.
it and to do the construction.
And the additional $1 million is to take a portion of that and do something extra so that we can have a playground. And if we don't do that extra, then there is no future playground at that field.
Correct. Not without coming back at some later time and doing some of that work.
If we decided to only do the $2 million and then decided, well, now we want the playground, it's not going to be $1 million to go back in there. It would be probably more because it's a whole new project,
Correct.
A future date, a future cost expense. Thank you.
Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to be, I'd like to be aggressive on this project. I would support going for the $3 million plus. We talk about, we do need playgrounds. And we start looking at alternative sites. It's obvious we've got we're tight on land. This is an area that we've looked at for years. When back in the 90s, when I was in the school department, we parked buses up there, and we even had an outfit from Hopkinton come over and have a golf range there, you know? So I think we could have done more starting back there. So here we are in 2020, and I think we have to spend the $2 million. I would like to give that, bring that additional $1 million, or you guys can, you know, approach this, Tom, the way you want to. And I think that's the key. And then, you know, move your trash around and do what you have to do. You have a consultant. You got you and your good men there. But I'd like to see us move on that. You know, someday I'd like to see, you know, a ball field there. I'd like to see some type of setup that you'd have a shell, like you'd have a musical amphitheater. And I could envision a lot of parking up there. And I don't mean to make light of it, but what I really want to see fireworks up there sometime. But all kidding aside, I'd like to move aggressive on this. And, you know, give the Department of Public Works, give the consultant the power, the confidence we have. And, you know, if we find that, you know, we spend the $2 million and we don't want to spend that extra $1 million, but I think you ought to approach it in such a way that you can do it the way you want to do it, and let's do it right. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation, and I'll echo everybody else's sentiment. I mean, I think the most important part is that we are aggressive about the cleanup and the remediation, so that people have the ability to be safe in the area, and that the neighbors who live downstream, if you were, from this area don't have any future complications. So I think that's incredibly important. Regarding the reuse of the field, so I know in the mayor's letter it says if there's going to be active reuse for recreation. Is there a difference between, and I know there is, but just for semantics here, for active reuse and passive recreation at the site? And is there kind of a difference in cost, or is it really an all or nothing for that?
I think in terms of the cost of the cap that would have to be done,
Yep.
it will be the same.
Okay.
Some of if you're going to make it a ball field, there's some extra costs in fill just to level the site. Ball field needs to be level. So there's some extra costs with that. But in terms of getting the permit from DEP, the cap cost would be the same. And just Councilor Doucette mentioned solar, and our consultant is very familiar with these types of projects, and he's worked on solar reuse at landfills before, and we talked about it here, and based on his expertise, this isn't a good site for that, and it would that the $1 million would be, that wouldn't be bring the site up to standards for solar reuse. There would be a different design that would need to be done. Solar panels have a lot of weight, so you'd have to design the fill structurally to hold the panels. Right now it's a north-facing slope. You need the fill to bring it up. That is really not oriented properly for solar reuse. And based on the size of the site and the revenue generated in similar projects that he's been involved with, it really wouldn't work when you factor in the cost to bring the site up to construct the solar field.
Question for the mayor again. So it's the $2,029,000. Going in the future, if we didn't decide on the whole amount, the cost could actually be higher. Is that what you're saying on the potential of having recreational? So you would be coming
I'll
back?
be honest with you, I'm putting this project behind me. So when we're done the $2 million cap, if that's what's decided on, we're moving on. I'm not going to come back down and say we need another $1.5 million to do initial remediation for the project, and here's another ball field. That's the reason I wanted to rescind that other bond too. I don't want to just kind of spring it on you someday. So I figure this would give you an opportunity. But my feeling, we have other things in the city. I'm looking to move forward, and whatever you guys decide, that's what I'm going to move forward with. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Orm.
Couple questions. First of all, you mentioned a report from a consultant, and I did ask, hopefully we'll see that report.
Yeah, there's several reports. I can make any of those available.
Who's our consultant, if I may ask?
Bruce Haskell, Langdon Environmental.
Yeah. Yeah, and just a point, and you're probably correct on some of the angles up there, but when they go to look at a solar farm, the person that wishes to use that land spends the money for the support base and the change of any of the grades. So that is included by the vendor who wishes to use that property. But I'd be curious to see the report, to see what the consultant, because they do preliminary reviews, and it'd be interesting to see what they said about a solar farm. As it relates to drainage, are there any drainage improvements over the landfill cap being proposed?
No, there's currently a leachate drain that drains to our sewer pump station. That's been there for a long time and still functioning. And then there's a surface water drain and a detention basin that are still collecting the runoff from the site, so that we don't need to do any drainage improvements.
And then on the recreation field, like I said, I want to see the reports first, but curious, if we do decide on a recreational field, in the past, we've used some of the funding that we get through the various taxes we raise from the food tax. Could any of that money, Mr. Mayor, be used for a recreational field?
No, absolutely. What we've been doing in the past is just using those funds to pay toward the bonds, but we've been accumulating funds in that meals tax line item, and we may be looking at something different this year, and maybe actually paying a chunk toward those bonds to lower some of our costs moving forward. So, no, absolutely, that if we were going to do a field up there, we could look at that fund for some of those
And
costs.
if I may, while you're up there, Mr. Mayor, just curious, so the $1 million you're looking for, could any of that meals tax be used for some of that $1 million, since its purpose is to make it a recreational field?
I think you're stretching now.
I didn't know. Has it been looked into?
I'd probably talk to the auditor about it, and she'd probably slap my wrist again, but...
Again?
Again. But, yeah, we could take a look at that, but at this point, like I said, I'm just looking to move this project forward. It's been a long time that, like you say, you've been asking questions about it. We were all pretty disappointed when we couldn't move forward with the field several years ago. So we're making up for the sins of almost 35 years ago, that we just never did updated reports. We never maintained the facility properly, and once it was brought to our attention, we got right on it.
Okay. I'll read the report.
Yep.
Stay neutral right now, but it's
Right.
concerning, and I want to be aggressive with this too, councilors, as it relates to the environmental remediation. Has to be done. No questions asked. Thank you.
Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, for going through the process of rescinding the bond for this, because I think understanding that this is not what the intended consequences was, and coming up and going through this, I think, thank you. True act of professionalism and the greatness for the city. I want to move forward aggressively to address this. I think we do need some sports fields, and if we can find some other places to put them, we should be pursuing that. I'm not sure where.
We don't have them.
That's something we need to figure out where or something. But this is going to take still a couple of years to get through this probably. So we'll see how things go from this. But I think at this point, we take it one step at a time, and we got to work on the capping at this point. So thank you.
Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not as familiar with the capping process. I'm just curious, once it does get capped, how long will that last? Is that a permanence? I'm just a little concerned with the health risks, and I just wanted to know if there's a future date where we would have to do this again.
As far as doing it again, I'll leave that up to the engineer, but we will be doing continuing testing on this. That's what we were deficient in 25 years ago. We just never did the continuing reports and the continuing testing. That's a continual process moving into the future. So that will be done, and if there's additional remediation later in the future, we're going to have to deal with that. But this is bringing everything up to date and doing everything the DEP is telling us we're required to do to get this back in shape. So.
Can you speak to the lasting of the cap?
Yeah, I don't know the exact lifespan, certainly into the foreseeable future. It's basically, it's a HDPE membrane and soil layers that would go over the part of the landfill that would be reused. So it would certainly outlast all of us here.
Wait a minute.
Even Councilor Perlman.
Oh, yeah? I think so. I'll outlive the field.
Just a point of, if you don't mind, Councilor Perlman, point of information. Usually about every 30 years, they start sagging again because the trash decays under the landfill, and you may not have to do a tremendous amount of remediation, but every 30 years or so, the trash is decayed enough to cause some sags within the landfill area, and they have to refill those in. So we're all going to be here in 30 years, Tom, so
Yeah,
speak
just-
for yourself.
Some of my concern would be that if there was a sports field placed there, that it would need to be addressed again, and that there might be some long-term health risks that we don't know about. So I would just be cautious of that, since it would be young people like on those fields, and that's just something that gives me pause without some of the reports in front of us to review.
Correct, yeah, I mean, that's something that's going to certainly be a question that will come up, and I'm confident that there's enough of a track record of these facilities, and that DEP is going to be involved enough that that won't be a concern.
Okay, and then one additional question, if it could not be used for a recreational facility or the solar based on our earlier conversation, are there any other additional uses for the site that are even in the possibility, or it was only a binary in that situation?
So any use that we would be bringing people onto the to the facility, you would need to have that upgraded cap.
Okay.
That's sort of what DEP's stance is. That they've determined that the soil cap from the 80s is sufficiently protecting people, any other routes of exposure, but if you're going to start introducing people walking on it, then that's when you'd have to upgrade that part of the site.
And then clarity from maybe the chairman, if we vote to approve the full amount, does that mean it's guaranteed to be a sports field? Is that part? Okay. That's a good
I
clarification,
would have to
maybe?
come back down with a plan
Okay.
and additional funding for a field. So it's not like you don't have a say on what we're going to do with it. That's the whole purpose to rescinding that other bond. So I would have to come back down and ask for additional funds if we were going to move forward on something.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
Councilor Orme.
Thank you. So I'm not ready to vote tonight. I'll say it to all my fellow councilors. What I'd like to see, and Tom, you just brought it up from the previous questions, is the different uses. You have your active, you have your passive, and no use. And those are your three tiers, basically. I'd like to see if there was a cost analysis on active. Well, you know that. You put up $1 million. What's the passive? That was brought up by a counselor. What's no use? What's the difference? Well, no use is probably no extra money. But I'd like to know what passive use what's that amount that has to be spent?
Well, again, passive use, I guess I think of that as trails or
Trails.
something like that. I think that really, again, any use that's going to bring people onto the site is when you're talking about an extra cap for that area. So
Yeah.
it's really just the two options.
Well, from what I can remember, and I'm just speaking from my own experience dealing with a landfill for 30 years now, is that when you go to active, you got parking, you got to prevent people from the gas vents. Those are two of the major concerns in wear and tear, so you don't get back into your cap. So that does cost more than passive. So I'd like to see that report and see if our consultant did the three tiers and see what the cost analysis was for each tier. And that will help me make a decision. So I would just ask that Mr. Chair, I think I would prefer to table this until we have that report so we can all get educated on the different tiers, the cost, and bring it right back to committee within a week or two if we get the reports right away.
All right, thank you, Councilor Orme. Mr. Mayor, what is the time frame that you were looking for, at least that $2,029,000?
I want to get moving on this project. So if I could suggest and see if it's feasible for the council, if you would refer it out without a recommendation, I can get the reports to the councilor, and you can make a final determination on the council level as to what you want to do. I want to get moving and get this behind us. It's been hanging out there for a long time, and like I said, whether you do $2 million or whether you do $3 million, I want to move forward. So if you would consider doing that, I'd appreciate it, but I'll let the engineer talk to the timing.
Thank you. Councilor Tenera.
Well, come with Council Landis on this, I suppose. If we're gonna do it right. Let's put a good cap on it, if that's what it needs to be. And I'd be willing to, I guess we just gotta make a decision, and I'm ready to make that decision. So I would make a motion if you're open to it, or if there's no other questions.
Yeah, I will ask President Ossing, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it might be helpful, Tom or Mr. Mayor, to, I'm looking at the estimate for what the $1 million gets us, and it looks like it's going to cover about 6.7 acres worth of the property. I mean, I'm just looking at, I'm not going to tell you I'm a cap expert, but just looking at it, it says 6.7. So the total site, there's 2 parcels on the site. One's 11 acres and one's 24 acres, so there's 35 acres there. I think it would be helpful if you came back with just a diagram that says this is how much is useful for a recreational area, and that $1 million either covers it or not. Because I'll be candid with you, from my standpoint, I want to see it used as a recreational area, what we can. I'd like to see the full amount approved, because I think either way, we want to, just having it sit there as a vacant lot doesn't benefit us at all. But I think it would put the councilors in a better frame of mind if they knew just how much of that land is actually used for recreation, and then if it's 6 acres, 10, 11, 35, or whatever, what type of fields can you put in there so people have an idea what to expect? I think that would just make it a little easier for the councilors to assess in their conclusions on how they want to vote on the project.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you're gonna send the reports to me, but I would ask that all the councilors get those reports, so they can look at them.
Then Councilor Doucette's going to yell at me because I'm going to print out about 11 stacks about this high.
Electronic email. I don't want paper.
Let's be realistic, Councilor.
I want an
The only
email.
one that's looking at those reports is possibly you.
No, I don't
All right,
believe that.
because no one else is going to be able to read an environmental report.
I don't want to I poll, but I bet they're all going to look at it. But Councilor Ossing just brought out Mr. President Ossing just brought out an excellent point, and that is, it'd be nice to see some plans too with the visuals that make it so easy to see where that proposed recreation area is and so forth. I agree.
I think all you have to do is dust off the original bond, and that's the usable field area.
We agree to disagree a little bit on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
If I could,
Thank you, President.
I'll yield to Councilor Roby.
Councilor Roby.
I guess my concern is, I thought there was a motion on the floor to table, and I guess we've had a whole lot of discussion, so either we're tabling or we're not. But
actually, Councilor Tenera.
I was gonna make a motion.
He's gotta make a
I didn't
motion.
make it.
But
Yeah,
I
a point of
believe Councilor
information,
Oram
Mr. Chair, I didn't make the
moved to
motion, I just
table.
said it'd be nice maybe just to table this. I didn't
For
make a
more
motion.
information.
No official motion was made yet.
Don't say that
Because
anymore.
I know that if I'd made that motion, I would curtail my fellow councilors from speaking, and that's the
Okay,
last
on-
thing I want to do.
On that comment, then, I guess, I think we are, those of us who sat on the committee when this was first proposed, probably do know where the recreation area would go, and we know, I have no idea proportionally, but I think that if you look at the landscape of the property, just by driving by and looking up at it from the north, looking back south, it's only going to be a very small portion of the property that can be used. The rest of it's just going to be natural open space with a beautiful view of the lake from the rail trail. So somebody move to approve, please.
I will entertain a motion. Councilor Tenera.
Motion to approve the $3,029,000.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Dumas. Motion to approve and seconded to approve the communication from the mayor regarding the transfer request in the amount of $3,029,000 for the design and construction of the DEP corrective actions related to the redevelopment of Hudson Street landfill. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman.
I cannot vote for this because of that comment I made. I can only vote for the 2 million at the time. If time allows for those reviews to be done, this is a big number, 3 million. So at this point, I will be voting against based on my past discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. All in favor to approve? Sorry, Councilman.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd also be really interested in the reports before officially voting, since I wasn't on the council previously when this had come forward.
Motion is on the floor to approve. All in favor? It carries, any opposed? 2. It carries 3-2.
Thank you, Councilors.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Second item on, the last item on the agenda this evening is order number 20-100-7917. Councilor Dumas will be recused from this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will read a letter from the mayor stating, "Dear President Ossing and councilors, I respectfully submit this request for the City Council to approval of a proposed acquisition of the above-referenced 2 parcels of land on Bolton Street across from the DEC building, deck building. The above-identified parcels are uniquely situated as the land is within a short walking distance near the existing deck building. These Bolton Street parcels can be utilized to increase off-street parking, as the deck currently does not have enough parking to meet present or future demands. Enclosed, please find the letter from Chief Procurement Officer Beverly Sleeper regarding why the proposed purchase constitutes a unique acquisition under the procurement law. The attached order fully authorizes the acquisition of these 2 parcels for a total combined purchase price of $400,000 and allows me to enter into a purchase and sales agreement for each parcel. To fund the purchase, the proposal order includes a transfer of $400,000 from open space stabilization. With your approval, I anticipate the City of Marlborough being able to acquire these parcels in early 2020, which will allow the additional parking at the deck building. I am available to discuss this acquisition with you further. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Mayor Arthur G. Vision. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This is a good opportunity for the city. About a year or 2 ago, a couple of the new owners up on Bolton Street had some deteriorated properties. Code enforcement had been in there and try to get them to move forward on something, and they ended up taking the buildings down and we're clearing the lot. In discussions, we've all received emails over the years from residents on Rice Street and on Washington Street about traffic issues and backups and parking and everything else. And so I just felt it was an opportunity to possibly pick up these lots and add some parking on Bolton Street that would basically help out the deck center. No matter what the use is of it, they need additional parking. Also would help out with any events we would be having down at the Common. And obviously the church would get some nice use out of it for their services that they have with very little parking up there. So I just thought it was an opportunity. We started negotiations with the owners and came up with a price that I think is fair to both sides. We don't have to raise the buildings, they're already down, and that's where we are today. Since then, I've had discussions with Councilor Landers, and he's had a number of concerns and also brought up the opportunity to see if we would be interested in the house at the corner of Francis Street. The owner from that house has actually contacted my office, and we're actually going up to take a look at that to see if there's an opportunity to get that at a reasonable enough price where we could even expand possibly as many as 10 additional vehicles with that additional property. So there's a possibility that I might be back down here to expand this lot, but right now we have an agreement with separate owners for the 2 parcels there, and we're hoping to keep that moving. So I'm asking for your approval to allow me to enter into an agreement with them and to ask you for a transfer for those funds. There was also some discussion as to the location where we're taking the funds from, and again, be willing to answer any questions on that also. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions for any of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a comment too. I know, the First Church are good neighbors. I think this will help out as well for any downtown winter holiday festivals and things like that. I had the big question on, I know there is a crosswalk there, and I know it was brought up by Councilor Doucette as well. Safety measures that can possibly be improved there as well. There is a crosswalk there, but going forward, having a safety measure there and any snow removal in the future as well.
Yeah, actually, I had this discussion with Commissioner Galoni and almost said, can we drag our feet on that a little bit? Only because it's like following a goat path. If we put the crosswalk on the right-hand side and everyone decides that it's easier to go up the left-hand side of the building, they're going to go up the left-hand side no matter where the crosswalk is. So it's almost like let's figure out the easiest way to get to the current deck center and then base the crosswalk on that. But obviously there would be improvements to have a safe crosswalk for people going back and forth.
Understand. Council Landers.
If I may, just...
Oh, yeah.
Because I may recuse myself.
Thank you.
My wife is a part-time substitute teacher, so she doesn't work there all the time, for the District Education Center, which we keep referring to DEC. But this does, in all respects, benefit the whole, and that's how I vote on the budget for the school as well. It benefits the whole. But I just want that so that if anyone questions the appearance, I'm not voting for one special parking space for my wife. With that said, I'm going to not recuse myself for the time being, but if recommended by council, I will. At this point, I will participate. But at the same time, I didn't have the floor. I just want to make that announcement in case, Mr. Chair, you feel I should recuse myself.
Thank you, Council Orm. I'll yield to Council Landers.
Mr. Chairman, the only reason I'd like to speak first, my name was mentioned. I'll tell you, I got the package on this deal, I think on Thursday night. I said, I don't think so. I'm pretty familiar with that area for 2 reasons. My office was there for 11 years, and my wife grew up 2 houses down. But I'm only kidding on that. But I said, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Parking, that doesn't relieve some of the problems altogether on Rice Street and Washington Street. So what did I do? Saturday morning, I got up and walked around it. Walked around, went down to a couple of other pieces of property to the church. And then I got thinking, I called the president on Monday morning, I think.
That was Friday.
Was it Friday? Okay. Visited the mayor. But the best thing I did, we had a planned lunch with the super and the assistant super. We went out to lunch. And then I got thinking, when I was downtown for the Festival of Trees, or the trees, I parked in the parking lot of the deck center. And, it made a lot of sense. You don't get into that traffic downtown. Santa Claus arriving, the fire truck, and you're going to walk up that hill to go to the church and all that stuff. So I parked there, and what that does, by getting involved, purchasing that piece of land, it gives us what we need more of. We talked about the Walker Building and the library and stuff like that. We're resolving somewhat the parking problem at the library, which is really good. So this situation that it takes care of the deck center, which as I say, I'm quite familiar with, relieves a few problems that I had concerns with there. And, the church, they probably figure their prayers have been answered. all right? But it takes care of the summer concerts, takes care of any activities that we have down in the common. And I think what we all want is we want that common to be used more, not just on Thursday nights for 10 summer nights. We want it to be used for other things. So all of a sudden, we have this parking. You know, I guess I am guilty of mentioning the, maybe buying that additional piece of property there. The only reason I thought of that, it would give us 10 or 12, 15 more parking places. But leaving that up doesn't give us that curb appeal that we want. I think it'd be practical and very functional. If we could, Mr. Mayor, you know, look into buying that additional piece of property. I don't know, it's what, 5,000 square feet or something like that. And I was kidding a couple of the Department of Public Works people. I don't want it to look quite like the parking lot down on Route 9 at Framingham State, you know, the nice brick and the wrought iron fence. But I think the key is, you know, let's make it functional, let's make it somewhat attractive. And to me, it solves a lot of concerns I've had over the years, and parking's one. It takes care of parking in that whole that area there. And, you know, after meeting with the super and the assistant super, that preschool is going to be there for a while. You know, in fact, they're going to increase the enrollment there because just the nature of it, you know, we have more, you know, special needs kids, and we got regular kindergarten kids that want to go in there. So I think here again, we got to take advantage of buying those two parcels, and if we can, you know, work out something that makes the city, gives the city more opportunities, Mr. Mayor, you know, I'd like to see us, if possible, go for that other parcel and come up with a parking lot. And, you know, meeting with the super and the assistant super, I'd like to see all this happen by September 1st. I don't know if it can happen that fast enough. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think that having this type of parking is actually very important for future development downtown. I typically come to downtown from the south because of coming up to 85. I see plenty of parking coming from the south up to downtown, but if you're coming from the north coming towards downtown, you really don't see much. And this is, you know, southbound, you know, northern traffic coming to downtown, and it will attract them. And then that basically alleviates a lot of the other type of traffics if someone's in here. So I think this is a fabulous location for it. About how many parking spaces would we be talking if it? About 33. Okay. And would the exit be directly onto Bolton Street or? Okay. Okay. But yeah, no, I think this would be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Councilor Ong.
Thank you. And I agree and concur with Councilor Doucette's comments he just made. And we did hear from the back, in case it didn't get announced, it's about 33 spots. The church, by the way, has been very generous to the city with Union Commons. So if there's any benefit here, they could get benefits when they hold their worship times, which is usually Sunday mornings, and they're lined right up the street. And it's very dangerous there. So I think this is a win-win situation for our events, having a parking lot on the same side as Union Common, as well as for the church, and almost in kind for what they've done for us through the years, but also, as noted, the District Education Center. I would ask before, I support this, Mr. Mayor, just so you know, but I would ask before we get too far into it that we let the Traffic Commission take a look at that crosswalk, not just for location, but also for these new lights they have that you press a button and they flash. Unfortunately, my family came to a close call up there after a concert where the person didn't see us. You know, they're coming up that hill, and sometimes they're just naturally speeding up, and it's a very dangerous area. So again, that's not my area of expertise, so I would say whatever we do, if it does get approved, Mr. Mayor, I would ask you also send that crosswalk to the Traffic Commission for review.
Well, those are the types of crossing areas that we've been doing. I've asked the commission to put those on the bike path areas, and we have it on down on 85 going into Hudson. We also have it on Ash Street. So that's the type of thing we'd be looking at.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councilor. Yeah, I will mention that too as well, to keep up with that with Commissioner Gallonia as well. Thank you. Any further questions? Council Plum.
I just wanted to say I'm also really in support of this. I think it's a really great location, and I'm just curious as well if there was an opportunity to put any bike instances over there
I'm
as
sure
well.
there'll be some area for that. It hasn't been final, the designs haven't been finalized or anything. We just want to secure the property and then, possibly take a look at that corner lot before we make the final design.
Yeah, and would we have any sort of timeline on when that other lot might be determined, or still
I would
early
think,
on?
I'm going to try to turn that around quickly because I've asked the commissioner if we can get this done for September, so.
All right.
I got to get moving on it. If it's a possibility, my guess is you'll know about it within the next 2 meetings.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you,
Mr. Chair?
Councilor. Thank you,
Motion
Councilor.
to approve the funding, the transfer of $400,000 from the Open Space Stabilization Fund, as presented in the mayor's letter of January 23rd, 2020.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Second. Motion is to approve and has been seconded to approve the transfer request in the amount of $400,000 from stabilization open space to open space acquisition to fund the proposed acquisition of 45-47 and 55 Bolton Street, map 57, parcel 104, and map 70, parcel 296. Any further discussion? All in favor? It carries 4-0 with Councilor Dumas recused.
Chairman, if I'm not being too aggressive, if we could possibly have this one suspended.
For suspension?
So moved.
So I could move forward on the agreement, that would be great.
Thank you.
You need consensus, or you want to move that?
How's the committee feel on the suspension?
Fine.
I'm
Okay.
fine.
Thank you, Mr. We'll have a suspension.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned at 8:59.